Hello and welcome to the 21st Century Writer, a podcast devoted to helping you develop the mindset to be a writer in the 21st century. Excuse me. My name is Diane Patterson. I'm a novelist and blogger.
And I'm Hannah Steenbock, a German author and coach.
And we've been having a morning. So we had all sorts of ideas about what today's topic was going to be, but I think we're just going to go with, I got off a plane last night. I got home at like 10:30 at night, and it wasn't, not even California time. I was on Central time, so I thought it was midnight. Summer, how does it affect your writing? That's what.
Or even vacation time.
Yes.
Because that's the thing with us authors, because we're never really off. We don't have time off. Our mind doesn't give us time off.
And there's a lot of pressure to keep going all the time.
Absolutely.
There's did you write today? There's what have you published lately? What have you, how many words have you gotten done? Yeah.
Is there a nice sound bite from the work in progress? I mean, that's what people throw up. Well, throw up is not the right expression. That's what they post anytime, every time, every day. And you see it in your writer groups, and there's just always this pressure going on. Keep writing, keep writing, keep writing. And vacations are really hard for authors.
So this week, I'll go first with my week. So this week, this was the only week this summer that all four of us, my husband, my kids, and I, were all in the same place at the same time and could go on a vacation. The first week of June we could, but my husband had a conference in the city that he had to attend a couple of times. He didn't have to be there full time, but he had to go a couple of times. So this was the week of the summer that we could take a vacation. Literally planned last week. It was like, okay, let's just do it. So we went to Chicago for a couple of days, where my husband grew up. So he got to be a tourist in Chicago.
And a tour guide, too.
Yes, and a tour guide. So that was fun.
Cool.
I'm going to tell you, usually I love flying by myself, because on a long plane ride, when I'm by myself, I do a lot of writing.
Yeah.
If I'm sitting with a member of my family, I don't. So there was no writing on the plane there or back, which, it's a plane ride. It doesn't have to be productive time. When we got to Chicago, we were all four together all the time. There was no time to go, okay, I'm going to go off and write now. And I actually found myself wondering more than once, how do other people handle this?
Yes.
Do they just take vacation time? Because I know like Nora Roberts goes somewhere and like writes a book in the middle of her vacation. But we would leave in the morning to, go find breakfast near the hotel. And we would come back after dinner that night. I'm not writing. I'm exhausted. And I have been with people all day. Pretty much I just wanted to climb into a little hermit shell and not come out. So, but I did find myself asking every day, should I force myself to make time for this? Yeah. So that was my week. I did a lot of reading. Now I got to remember what I was reading, because I was trying to read novels. But I did no writing. So, you?
I did some writing, which is pretty cool. I'm happy I did. Yay. I had 2 more story ideas, which I still need to organize into something of an outline. If I, or maybe even just, make some notes, because one of them is already starting to disappear again. So I need to write those down. I actually had clients, which was kind of awesome, and it took time away from writing. And of course, I did my usual blogging, but not anything really remarkable. I didn't write a whole lot. I got a lot of rest. And since it's my birthday on Sunday, I'm also taking some days off and having time with friends. So I don't expect a whole lot of writing for the next week either. We'll just see how that goes. I have 2 more days off next week, and I'm really trying to relax enough to write.
Well, that's the thing. I wonder, is relaxation antithetical to writing?
I think it could be both. I mean, I get my best ideas, and since I don't outline a whole lot, and I just work my way through the story, I get my best inspiration in bed. So if I have time out, I don't go to work. I sometimes I curl up in bed midday just to have more ideas, which is really weird. And I can do it because I live alone. I mean, that's a luxury. So time I have is my time, unless I decide to spend it with someone else. And the idea of doing what Nora Roberts does, just going somewhere for a week or 2 and do nothing but write and have someone else cook for me.
No. This is in the middle of having a vacation or in the middle of going to a conference. Oh. She'll write a book at the same time. This is not a writing vacation.
Oh, okay. I don't really think I could do that, to be honest. I mean, I need 8 hours of sleep or I'm not going. My writing isn't going anywhere if I don't get enough sleep. So,
I found myself wondering, do I need to be getting myself up early before everyone else is getting up to do writing? Is that what a real writer would do? On the other hand, then that's not much of a vacation.
Exactly, and I think, I mean, writing is different than doing a normal job, and I think taking time off from a normal job is really important. But I also think taking a vacation is important and taking the pressure away of saying, okay, here's 1 week where I do not have to write. I mean, I remember you writing in Hawaii, and that was probably fairly easy because you had alone time there.
Yes, I kept waking up early because I guess we had gone west. So yes. I was on an earlier schedule, and we didn't have very much day-to-day stuff planned. It was really just flopping on a deck chair and maybe swimming once in a while.
Yeah.
Whereas in Chicago, we had to get to this museum, and then we had to get to this museum, and then we had dinner reservations. And
yes. So that wasn't really conducive to taking time away from the family and writing.
On the other hand, I am one of these people that definitely finds some benefit to writing regularly, writing every 4 out of 7 days at least, to stay going, to keep the pump primed.
Which is good, but personally, I would say give yourself permission to take that week off, even if it has to be after the fact. Give yourself permission to enjoy everything you did and go back into writing, go back into your normal schedule at home. I mean, I believe habits can be tied to locations so that you have your normal writing daily habits at home, but you don't necessarily have them in another place.
Sure. Absolutely. I mean, now that I'm back here and I have my desk and my whole setup, I'm like, okay. And I did find myself on the plane yesterday. One of the decent experiences on this plane flight. What is it about American domestic flights? Domestic flights within the continental U.S. It's like they've just given up. But one of the pretty decent things on this flight was that you got to choose many, many shows or movies to watch. So I watched a documentary called Citizen 4 about Edward Snowden.
Okay.
Which is extremely interesting, and I recommend watching it because I had not known some of this stuff about the whole Edward Snowden story. during watching it, I'm like, oh, that would be interesting. Okay, that would be interesting. And I'm kind of gave me a couple of ideas for something I'm working on. So there was that. And I immediately, I'm like, the only thing I had to write on was my iPad. So I'm like hurriedly doing notes on the iPad.
That's cool. That's cool. But, you know, like, maybe that's a European thing. People here get, as a rule, about 6 weeks of vacation per year, paid vacation. That's basically labor law stuff, so you can't really take it away from folks. And so vacations are something that are highly valued here. And people are encouraged to take at least 3 weeks as a block for, you know, real recovery. And so people here would say, yes, go for a vacation and really give yourself permission to do nothing.
Well, my husband is maxed out on vacation, and so he has plenty of vacation to take. He just, it's very difficult at a certain point to find the time to take it. In fact, every time he pulled out his phone, he said, "Oh God," and he would put it away because it would be somebody from the office trying to get a hold of him.
Yeah, that is the work at a certain level in a company that just happens. And I know for a fact that my boss rarely takes long vacations, and that's civil service, and even he doesn't really take several days off in a row or several weeks. I mean, he did it once, which absolutely made sense because he was visiting a relative in Australia, but. And you don't go from Europe to Australia for a couple of days. It just doesn't really worth it. You're flying 30 hours. You're not going to turn around after 3 days.
Wow, I think it's 15 from here. So
it's about
I guess that makes sense.
It's huge.
I had a really hard time, even though I'm, you know, clearly not die-hard, huge producer, several 100,000 words a month writer, I had a really hard time disconnecting and saying, yes, this time is for me.
Yes.
Particularly, you know, when you have writers like Stephen King say, I think it was On Writing, he said that he used to say that he wrote every day of the year except July 4th and his birthday. And he was actually going to come clean and say that he actually wrote every day of the year, including July 4th and his birthday.
Well, that depends on his definition of writing. I mean, if you define writing as pulling up a file and putting in a word or two.
I don't think he does. Yeah.
I don't think he does. But yeah, I think writing is different from many other jobs or many other occupations because basically our brain goes 24/7, and I believe there's a whole lot of myths around how writing works, and we buy into them more or less. I mean, there's this myth of I can only write if the muse kisses me, and that happens 3 days in a year. That is not very productive. But it could also be the Stephen King way of, you know, if I'm not writing every day, something's wrong with me. And I think we need to find a way that works for us individually. That's what my coaching part of myself would say. You need to develop the awareness for how your body works, how your mind works, what's your best writing time. When do you get your best ideas? Where do you get the best ideas? How can you make your writing most efficient?
And I think you have to really push the boundaries on finding those things.
Yes, I agree. And, you know, taking a week off and not writing at all, you can look at how that makes you feel, because I get a vibe that you feel that you are not happy with not having written in that time.
It makes me nervous that because I am in a difficult point. I'm in Act 2.
Yes.
Which I'm always worried about the mushy middle. Act 2, when you're like expanding all these threads, and then towards the end you have to start pulling them back together. Well, I've taken this time off, maybe I'll just take a little more time off, that kind of thing.
Okay.
And it's, I don't think that I have written enough. Despite how much I have written in my life, I have not written and completed enough novels to have a general confidence that I'm going to pull it out this time.
Do you think you'll ever have that?
You know, I do hear a lot of writers say that, or read a lot of writers, I guess I should say, that they still don't know after a long time, which really surprised me.
I think each project is new. Each project has its own challenges. And I also think that expecting Act 2 to be hard and difficult and getting stuck in there is a thought habit. I'm going to be really cruel here.
Oh yeah, no, I believe that. I believe that.
I think it is something that you got used to thinking, and you expect it, and that's why it happens.
Yeah, I have a friend who says, no, Act 2 is easy, Act 1 is hard. And,
so put your thoughts together and create the new
easy.
thought.
Well, here's the thing.
Act 1 is cool. Act 2 is easy.
I don't know. You know, I guess we could get into a whole discussion about this. What is easy? You know, I'm actually got into a fight with someone online about easy.
Yeah.
I think some writers, me included, take the easy way out. And, you know, it's like, oh, well, this is, you know, instead of pushing ourselves or, you know, sort of working at it to get it to the next level. There would probably be a very easy way of writing this book. I wish I knew what it was, but because I apparently keep taking the difficult road. In fact, the idea that came to me during Citizen 4 was something that would help me with a problem that I've been having. I think it would solve that problem.
Yes.
I just realized that I introduced a whole new character. And I went,
whoa.
The hell?
Yeah, that makes it hard. Yeah. That makes it difficult.
That would solve the problem, but oh boy, does that expand things a little. So, well, one of the nice things about going on vacation to a totally different place, which is we went to Chicago, which is a gigantic city in the Midwest, completely different than the bucolic little suburb we live in California. For one thing, the showers had amazing water pressure. You will never have water pressure like that in California, because if you get lost in a daydream, you have used your month's water supply. Seriously, I got into the shower and said, this is pretty nice. Because it's so different, one of the things I did try to do was take notes about what makes it different. Now you're like, it's a city, of course it's different. No. Yes, you have the buildings, you have the styles of buildings. One of the great things in Chicago, by the way, if you're planning on going, is the architecture boat tour on the Chicago River. Highly recommended. Do it. They point out the various buildings on the Chicago River, the history of them, what went into building them, how you can tell one from the other. It's great stuff. You know, the smells that we just don't have here in suburban California.
I bet. And the different birds and the different sounds.
The different people, the different makeup of the people. We're pretty homogenous here in my town, both racially and class. There's a whole big mix of people in Chicago, you know, the different methods of transportation. So I'm like taking notes about what specific things tell me that I'm in a city, in case I ever need those details for a writing piece.
I love it. I love it because that is being a writer on vacation.
Well, that's actually something I did in LA once. Was I was down in LA and I said, what tells me that I should take my car here instead of walking? Because I like to walk. I try to walk at least 12,000 steps a day. Why would I immediately go for my car and not walk? And so I don't know if I got really into civil engineering for a while, the design of cities. Yeah. And I noticed that not only were most of the roads 4 or 6 lanes wide, yes, but the radius of the turn on the sidewalk was such that it was designed for the car to take it at 35 miles an hour. So if you're walking, you're psychologically aware that a car could be coming around at full speed at any minute. I'm like, of course I would get my car here because I know that I'm going to be dodging cars. So is you know,
if it's funny because I walked in LA, well, not downtown LA, in the suburb where I walked. There were days when I just walked to school. That was a 40-minute walk.
Which part? There are really hugely different
that was
qualities to various parts.
Does Pomona mean anything to you?
Yeah, I don't know precisely where it is, but yeah.
So there's like, you have LA County, and then there's Orange County, a bit to the southeast, and then there's Pasadena, and Pomona is sort of south of Pasadena.
Oh, okay.
So it's still it's part of the valleys.
Yeah.
And yes, we didn't have the very huge freeways, but the major road I walked on was a 4-lane road. But it did have a little sidewalk, and it was basically straight, so I didn't have to expect any wild car turns.
Well, so where we lived in Sherman Oaks, for 7 years. The main drag through Sherman Oaks is Ventura Boulevard, which is 6 lanes, I think. We lived south of the boulevard. The roads are tiny. They're designed for having 2 cars, one going each direction. There are sidewalks. You expect to find people walking, pushing their baby carriages or whatever. Yeah. North of Ventura Boulevard, the roads are laid out straight. They're wide. They do have sidewalks, but they're broken up continuously by driveways. Yeah. Not designed for walking at all. I walked all the time around our house. I never walked north of Ventura Boulevard. It was terrifying.
I can imagine.
Yeah. So, and you know, when describing an area, I can't remember where I saw this writing exercise, but I'm sure many writing teachers have had this. When describing something, pick 3 key details to describe it that make it unique to that area, to that whatever you're describing.
Yeah.
So I play that game a lot when I'm on vacation. If I had to describe this area to someone, what would they say? Okay, I have a picture now in mind.
And you know, that's basically training yourself as a writer. It's training yourself as observer. And a while ago, I tried to come up with the 3 major abilities you need to have to be a good writer. And one of them is that you need to be a good observer. Because you can't create a world in your text if you don't observe the world around you and know what elements the world has. So I believe a good ability or powers of observation are immensely important to an author. So by being aware during your vacation, what you did was you didn't actually put words on the page, but you certainly trained your mind to be even more observant, for lack of a better word, to be so you can make your stories even more realistic, that you can have all these details. So I think you basically switched gears as a writer, but you didn't completely stop being a writer.
Well, it's also a useful game to play to make sure that you stay in the moment.
Yes.
Because there's, you're walking. We were doing walking 6 and 7. No, I guess a couple days we did even 10 miles a day, just walking around. And after a while, your brain just disengages and you're thinking about where you're going to dinner that night, or wow, there are a lot of people here and wish they'd get out of my way. That's always a fun game to play. No, I won't get out of your way. People will walk right into you. I just really find that astonishing. And, you have a general, I walk down the right-hand side of the sidewalk, you walk down the left-hand side of the sidewalk. No, people right into you.
I walk a lot in pedestrian zones where you don't have sidewalks,
which
is, or on sidewalks that are really big enough, so like 4 or 5 people could walk next to each other. So the right and left lane principle no longer works in that kind of place, and so you get people walking in each direction, sort of with several lanes. You can never really predict where exactly they are.
I always wonder, don't they feel weird, like walking on the other side? We are trained so much with driving.
I mean, I would love to take you on a stroll through my town, because in those areas, people just walk, and we simply, it's basically, I guess that's just a basic human ability to sort of subconsciously decide who is going which way, and you signal this with your eyes. I said that's the game I play. I walk up to a person, and I decide if I want to pass that person on the right or on the left. And then I give this eye clue. What you do is you let your eyes slide to the side where you want to pass that person. And that's a signal. They receive it, they say it, and they actually change their direction slightly to accommodate you. So both of us don't have to, we both take like a little step out of our
as a woman in the city, I will not make eye contact with many people. I think that's just an invitation to problems. A lot of people, some men will take that as an invitation. Oh, she wants to start talking to me. No,
that doesn't happen here. Not that much. I mean, seriously, I can walk. I've heard about. I've not watched it because I couldn't bring myself to do so. But I saw a lot of talk about that woman who walked through New York and got catcalls all the time. I don't get catcalls here. When I walk to work, when I walk through town, people don't do catcalls here. They just do not. I remember I got whistled at once. Once. And I was riding a bicycle, and I was wearing bicycle shorts. And that was a working crew, and they were doing work on the sidewalk, and one of them whistled at me. And I kind of laughed, but that happened once, and I'm turning 50 on Sunday, so once. So that's a huge cultural.
Yeah, no, yeah, it's a huge. That wouldn't happen in my town, but it has happened in San Francisco.
Yeah.
I remember once actually as a teenager in San Francisco, there were some construction guys, and they actually surrounded me.
Ooh.
And so ha 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 ha. And now looking back on it, I'm like, the mentality that goes into doing that, and the mentality that I immediately had for self-protection of, isn't this funny? Please let me go.
Very key, yeah. I have to admit, there are, and that sounds really racist, but there's a type of Mideast young men who I will not make eye contact with either. Let me put it that way. We do have immigrants from Turkey and other states nearby, and I don't want to sound racist, but that's just, if there's young men of that type.
Pro tip: whenever you start a sentence with "I don't want to sound X," You're about to say something that makes you sound X. Just so you know.
It is, and it's simply that my sense of self-protection overrides my desire to be an open, internationally minded person. So, yeah, it's prejudice, it's unfair, but that's the kind of group I don't make eye contact with. I'm honest about that.
So what is your summer? How do you I assume that your work is at a university?
Yes.
Yeah. Does that slow down? Well, I guess your work couldn't slow down anymore, but does work in general at the university slow down during summer?
Yeah, I've been talking about that. It does in a way, but I work in administration, and our admin work doesn't really stop just because the students don't come around and listen to lectures. It's different for people in teaching areas in the institutes and departments. For them, that's the time of the year to take vacations. Actually, the summer term ended today. So the summer term at University of Lectures ends today, and lectures will resume in October. So that's our large summer break in universities. Winter term usually runs from mid-October to mid-February, and the summer term runs from early April to mid-July. That's the teaching terms that we have here. Okay. Summer for students generally means taking a job, working for money. We don't have to pay tuition. That's universities are free. We do have a semester fee, which goes into student representation. It goes into a bus ticket. It goes into some of the admin stuff that is done. But that's like €100, 120. I think that's what it is now, for a whole semester, which I think Americans would laugh at.
So what do the books cost? What do the books cost?
They are expensive. When I was studying English, we didn't have to buy a whole lot of textbooks. That was fairly okay. The libraries do try to offer several of those books that are really needed. So books aren't. I don't actually know. I think if you study medicine, books will make a difference. The price will make a difference. I don't think book prices are very different to the US, actually.
Well, I've seen some prices that people have been posting of university textbooks, and it's insane.
Yeah, some of them are insane, and I know that many students actually sell theirs when they're done.
Yeah, no, they've always done that. The trick is they keep updating the edition, and you're supposed to get the latest edition. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a trick that publishers use to push their expensive books. For me, it wasn't really a big problem. And of course, a lot of people will have to write their written stuff. We have, I don't want to call it a thesis, but a lot of and the whole system changed because we went to a bachelor-master system about 5-6 years ago, and the whole study mechanism changed. I studied before that, so I think the workload has increased a lot. People are writing a lot more tests, and they have to do a lot more homework and hand in essays and homework. So the summer break usually means, yes, students take some time off, but then they have to work on their assignments and yeah, that kind of stuff. And usually there's a week of testing. Probably this week was the main week for testing.
So when you have this sort of lackadaisical, like, my son is going to camps during the day. Well, I guess my daughter has been gone most of the summer, but in general, they are either lazing around at home or going to camps, which means I have very prescribed time for dropping them off, time for picking them up. And of course, it's summer, so it's hot and you feel lazy. How do you get yourself into that mindset where you're like, no, I don't care what season it is and what everyone else is doing. I'm going to write anyhow.
Well, I have to admit, it's not easy for me either. I still don't have good writing habits, so. But what I imagine what would help is to actually have habits when you start your day and adapt them to your summer schedule with the kids, if possible. When I'm on vacation, I tend to be really lazy about writing, which is partly because I don't have a nice working laptop and I don't have anything mobile that really works for me because I have carpal tunnel and I need my really low keyboards.
Oh.
And writing on a laptop isn't really going to cut it long term. So I haven't figured out a good non-stationary way of writing.
Yeah, I know. I've found myself. I no longer write by hand, and we were walking through the city, and I wanted to just take out a notebook and a pen and just jot down some notes.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to take out my phone, and start jotting down some notes. So I'm like, okay. Yeah. And so I sounded a bit like Arya Stark. I was repeating each thing that I was noticing to myself, trying to remember the list until we could get somewhere to stop and I could type it.
In my little backpack that doubles as my purse, I have a notebook with me all the time. I don't use it very often, but when I need one, I have one, and it's actually visual cue. I actually got it here, and it doubles as.
Oh wow, that's a big one.
That's A5. That's one of the normal sizes that we have here.
Normally, when I had a notebook around, I would just take something about this size.
Yeah.
And I have this lying around for a reason, not that I take notes in it, but.
Yeah, I have one like that, but I prefer this booklet kind of thing because it takes to handling. I've been using it for over a year now. It's I don't really write a lot into it, except when I'm in a cafe or sitting somewhere and having thoughts, when I write them down, or addresses or phone numbers, that kind of stuff. So it's not really very helpful, but. So I have it in my backpack just in case I need it.
It is funny the number of stories that we tell ourselves about. Under these conditions, I'm doing X, Y, or Z, or I can only do. I must be writing. No, I need to take this week off because I'm on vacation, so there should be no writing. Act 2 is hard.
And the best thing to realize is these are all stories, and we can edit them and rewrite them and figure out better ones that serve us better. So, like the story I can't write anywhere except on my desk is nothing but a story, and I'm considering getting a tablet with a keyboard just to have another option when I travel, and have a mini office with me rather than telling myself, I'm visiting with my sister, there's no way I have to write or I can write because because I could. I mean, her guest room has a desk, and I probably could tell everyone, what, I'm going to write for an hour, just leave me alone. The kids are big enough to respect that, so.
That has always been the greatest thing about NaNoWriMo. It's because we have the big Thanksgiving holiday during November. And so there's a big family get-together. And in a family get-together of that many people, I feel really overwhelmed. I grew up in a family of 4 that was always just a family of 4. There was no extended family get-togethers. So it's like, I have to go work on my Nano novel now. I'm going to go have some alone time here. I'll see you later.
And that's another great awareness of your needs, because it really helps if we know how we do well. And if we know we need alone time and we need, let's say, 2-3 hours of alone time every day in order to be able to interact with others in a nice way again, I know I need that. My sister has complained about that when they visited. And I mean, imagine you get a visitor, you get 4 visitors. You live, you know, I used to live here with my husband. And it's a fairly quiet life if it's just 2 of you. And then you get 4 people coming into the apartment, 2 lively little kids, and there's always noise and bustle. And then they decided they wanted to go for a walk on the beach, and I said, you know what? Go.
Yeah.
Just leave.
I've done that.
And my sister said, but we want you with us. And I said, no, I just need some time alone.
And I was thinking about this because kids have an unerring sense for this. It's not even so much that I must be in the space physically alone. It would be fine if I were sitting there doing my thing and somebody else was sitting there doing their thing. I think I was reading something. I can't remember. I noticed this choice during the vacation. I would start doing something and my son would ask me. So I'd have to get out of what I was doing, turn, and then I would get back into what I was doing, and he asked me something else. I'm like, are you only doing this because right now is when I'm reading? And no, I don't think he was.
No.
I think I was more aware of it because I was, you know, getting into the shell, but it was pretty funny. Yeah.
So this is, I think this is another. It doesn't necessarily. I find it hard, but it's not necessarily vacation themed. But it's knowing what's good for us. It's knowing what we need. Mm-hmm. And when you go on vacation, you still have to get what you need. You still need to get your alone time. You need your shell time. I love the expression. I love it. That's cool. Because you can have a shell even if it's 4 of you in the same room.
Yeah.
It's a cool expression.
Yeah, I just had to accept that this was not the time for being by myself. This weekend, I might go off by myself for a few hours, but not during this week. My daughter went to Europe earlier this summer, and now she's off at camp for 3 weeks. So I'm seeing my daughter for like 2 weeks this summer. I know I have to get used to that.
It's training.
Yeah. It really does go fast.
But I really think giving yourself permission to have different days than your usual writing days is key to having a good vacation. And I love the way you found different writerly things to do, like being really aware of your surroundings, of finding those descriptions of, I mean, even if it's just mind games that you're playing, it's still part of writing in the way I see it, you know.
That reminds me, there was when I was in Berlin, some god-awful number of years ago when it was still West Berlin, there was a artistic co-op that had a game that you would get the cassette tape from them, I think, and it would take you on a tour of the city. Mm-hmm. Only they would put stuff in it to make you think that there was another story going on. And, you know, in this day and age, I guess with iPhone apps, people are doing this kind of thing all the time. But you would walk around and then it would say, see that man over there? You know, you'd be at the zoo. See that man over there? He's actually a spy with this organization. Watch what he does. And of course, there would be a man standing there because you're at the zoo, right? I mean, there's like 1 million people there. And so you'd be like, what is he doing that makes him a spy? You know, it's a whole different And I've never run across that in any other city, but it was pretty cool.
That sounds really cool.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure it took a lot of effort on their part to put together, but yeah, keeping the imagination going, keeping you know, there's always you know, of the parts of the city I've been in, which ones would I want to live in? I don't think this is where I want to be, but of course I play that game with real estate all the time. Whenever I'm talking to someone on the computer or whatever, I'm always looking up real estate where they're living, going, what could I get in their town?
I find I can't really read very well when I'm in a train. So I look outside. Usually, I usually book a seat in a compartment rather than in one of those airplane-shaped wagons. So there's this compartment with 6 seats, and my luck usually is that there's a kid in there, which means I can't really focus on any story I'm reading. And so what I do is I try to get a seat at the window, and I look out of the window, and I keep looking at the houses and the landscape and whatever is flying by, and I'm thinking, would I like to live there? Would I like to live there? That's a nice view. That's a nice house. So I entertain myself with that kind of thinking.
Well, I wonder, the novel The Girl on the Train, which has been a huge bestseller here, it's a thriller set in London. I wonder if the genesis of it was the writer sitting on the train looking into people's backyards and seeing something one day and thinking, what if?
That's what you also see in the train, because you literally go through the parts of the city that are not as good and posh. So you go and see the backyards. You see the little, we have the system where people can rent a little garden patch. And that's not next to their house. I mean, imagine they're living in an apartment block in the middle of the city, and they can sort of go out and have a little garden patch. And they have, don't ask me the size, but they're usually a fairly fixed size. And they're usually organized in clubs, and they have a little garden thing. So those are quite often you find those near the rails, because
nobody else wants the land.
Matter. Yeah, exactly. You won't be building expensive houses there because of the noise. So you see the factory areas, you see the not so nice areas of town, and that again, for me, it fires up my imagination. So I use travel time just to collect story ideas, just to keep thinking, what if?
It's funny that you mentioned that. Land is so valuable in the San Francisco Bay Area that they're putting houses on everything. If something has one house, they're tearing it down and putting up 3. And in Mountain View, which is of course home of Google, they have built so many townhomes, like right by the train track, by the Caltrain track, and for big money. So because that is a more walkable area, because the downtown Mountain View train area is right near the downtown Mountain View shopping area, those are tremendously popular.
I bet.
I just look at these things going, there is no way. I once had an apartment near the Caltrain track. I was living in Menlo Park. And it was good because it taught me to sleep through anything.
I bet.
But that was not a desirable location.
No.
It's insane.
And seriously, you won't have a lot of homes directly at the high-speed train tracks, and usually if there are any, you would have like big walls to sort of wall off the noise a little. But you do, if there's a village, the train goes through it, and of course then when it enters a town, it'll slow down because they can't race through train stations, so they slow down for the big cities. But It
you
is.
know those walls, those walls by freeways and by train tracks. They don't ask us. They don't. They do kind of act as sound buffers for the immediate location, but they actually act as sound reflectors.
They do. They just echo the sound up, and then the wind carries it anywhere. Yeah. I do know that. Again, this is observation. This is a huge trait for authors. We need to observe, and I think, at least my mind is, I remember so many details, so many things, so many little stories that happen when I travel, and I was in Greece twice. And once at the end of my school years, just before I graduated from the German school, and because I was taking ancient Greek as a class, I was part of that tour. And we did a 10-day tour de force. God, I think it was 12 days, but we traveled through Peloponnesus and up around Athens, and I still remember most of the places we were. And then 6 or 7 years ago, we recreated a lot of that tour with my parents-in-law. My father-in-law is a professor for ancient Greek and Latin, so that was kind of fitting.
Yeah.
And we flew into Athens and rented a car and traveled through Peloponnesus again and stayed in some of the same places. And it was really funny to revisit those places, and I could still vividly remember what had happened at each of those places. I was going to say how many years ago, but
many years ago, yes.
And some of those places hadn't even changed. Like we were in Sparta, which is a fairly modern big town now, but the center, ancient Sparta, with the theater and some of the temples, it's all in ruins, but it was still the same. We walked there, and I could literally say, yes, this is where we sat these many years ago and listened to the presentation about ancient Sparta. And that was awesome. And I remember these details, and I think that is another thing authors need, to have all these little stories in their heads, which we can turn into.
And the details of the experience really change it from, we were sitting on the green listening to some music, or we were sitting in Millennium Park near the Cloud Gate, also known as the Bean, the big mirrored thing, listening to somebody playing their viola for, money. It's the little details of things that you really, and so if you don't have an opportunity to write, take that opportunity to be in the moment and figure out how you would describe this to someone. And don't just use visual details. I was reading a book one of the books I read during the holiday. I just really, this is the only detail that you have for this time. If like one of it was set in an underground stone facility in, I think, Alsace-Lorraine during World War II.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I was just in an underground facility in Vienna last year, and the smell of the water on the stone, because it had been there for so long, I'm smelling it now.
Yes.
Not one smell of this underground facility. And I was like, no, try harder. I had some other problems with that book too, but
yeah. It's like when I take myself back to ancient Sparta, and I'm sitting on one of those marble ruin parts, and you can tell it's been part of a column because it has this drum shape with the crenellations, and I'm sitting on one of those, and it's early fall, so all the grass has dried up, and you basically sit in this field of dry grass that has never been really mowed, and you have some birds and singing, and it's still sunny, and the sun burns the side of your face where it shines on, that kind of stuff. Yeah. And the smell of the dry grass. And then I get a whiff of smoke from the bus driver who's smoking because he can't smoke in the bus. So, so he's smoking and listening to the presentation. And it's like I can really be there and close my eyes and look around and get all the sensory input again. And I think filling up your mind with that kind of images. I don't even want to say image because it's this experience.
Sensory experience. Yeah.
3D experience.
And that's a thing I had to keep poking my kids saying, guys, be here now. You know, I know that there's interesting stuff on your phone. It will still be there when you go back. I think
it's hard for kids, I think, to actually realize that
the
moment will never come back.
Yeah.
And but we're adults. We can grasp that with our minds, and we can make it into a habit of when we're out there, be there. I mean, just not walk there, but be there. So that's what you do on vacation as a writer, if you can't write.
That's vacation as a writer, if you can't be writing.
Yeah.
So, and of course, one nice thing is that your time sense gets so screwed up that, yes, there will be the night that you only sleep 4.5 hours, but then there's the night that you will sleep 8 hours because your body simply collapses and somebody else is going to make the bed in the morning. So,
yeah.
It's awesome.
And I especially love not having to cook, but that's just me. I love getting meals.
It's funny. My husband used to tell the story about his parents, which was that his dad traveled a lot. And so he always wanted to eat at home, whereas his mom always wanted to eat out. And I could never quite figure this out. We always ate at home. My dad didn't travel. My mom didn't travel. We were always at home. Eating out was a big deal for us. We did it maybe once a month. But I've recently realized that, you know, my husband is having a lot of meetings. He's out all the time. He's always eating out. He wants to eat at home, whereas I am done being at home by the time he comes home and I am ready to go out. I don't want to go clean those dishes afterwards. So
I totally get that.
Yeah,
it used to be that we used to, on vacation, we went to a place in Austria and we had this, not really, well, we call these a pension, a pension, which is a place where you get breakfast or dinner. That was a place, and my parents paid for dinner. We had breakfast in our rooms. You know, just bread and jam, things you don't have to cool. And I hate having only jam on my bread for breakfast. And then my mother, and we spent the day out at the lake at a campground, and we had this small camp cooker. We had a VW bus, and we had a small cooker in the back of it. And my mother cooked lunch every day on the campground near the lake, on the beach of the lake. And I remember thinking how awful it must be for my mom to be responsible for lunch even on vacation, and to be responsible for feeding the family. And the only thing we had was a full meal at night at the hotel.
Yeah. Yeah, whenever we go out, we prefer when we go to a place to rent an apartment or rent a house.
Yes.
If we can. But I got to tell you, it's like, then I get to do laundry. I'm not so sure how I feel. I kind of like the hotel way of doing it.
Yes. And I think that's one thing I never really caught on, but my parents didn't have the money to buy an extended hotel stay for us. So usually we would rent apartments. And then, of course, my mom would be stuck doing the work. And I always thought that was rather unfair. I mean, she wasn't really having a big vacation. She was doing the same as she did at home. So I really appreciate getting meals, I have to say that. That's my vacation dream. It's just having a writing setup, getting meals, not having to do laundry. It's like having
I know.
Having staff.
I have some stuff that I've farmed out to other people now, but I'm still in charge of the cooking.
Yeah.
So, maybe one day. Well, it's funny when there's only 3 of us. Like my daughter's off at camp now, so there's just 3 of us home.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, do I have to come up with something for dinner for us? Can't we just? And of course, when it's just me and my husband, when both kids are gone, then we. I'm not cooking. Forget that.
Yeah, I can understand that.
So
Well,
so yes, the deep problems of summer, the summer for the writer. Oh well.
Well, that's all mindset stuff. I mean, it's I think getting clear on what you want or what your needs are, and storing up on impressions.
Well, it's funny because I realize that I really have my mental model of the calendar year is basically it goes from September to June.
Yes.
The block in between June and September, that's like a different color. And I really see it as going around like that.
Yeah. Well, that would be an interesting thought experiment to shift the color of that space. And
yeah. No, I know. It's funny. We get so trained by the school year over 18, 22 years, the formative years. So
that's very different in Germany. The summer vacation time is 6 weeks.
Yeah.
That's all. Kids are off for 6 weeks, and then school starts again. And it's staggered through the different states in Germany, so it could start in June and would be over in July.
Wow.
Or it could start in July and be over at the end of August. And that's that.
They're trying to change a lot of the school years here. It's very, very hard going because, of course, tradition. But this 3-month summer is killing a lot of working parents.
I imagine that, and it's also, I think it's not good for the kids because they completely get out of the habit of learning things. They get out of the habit of getting up early,
and they forget stuff that they've learned. It's astonishing. I mean, unfortunately, with my kids, you're not allowed to do that in my house. We're going to be asking you questions, but a lot of kids, it's out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah, and they spend 3-4 months doing no brain work if you ask, if they're allowed, and then they have to go back to school. And I know teachers here complain about the kids on Mondays because 2 days of not thinking and 2 days of spending on the computer and television completely blows the brains of kids. Even 2 days. So imagine 3 months of not doing anything that keeps the mind going. I can imagine that. So that's school starts in September, right?
Yeah, generally.
So
this year the kids' school is starting in mid-August, and the school was talking about moving it even a week earlier to the beginning of August, and parents just went nuts saying, "Stop it!" They used to start after Labor Day, which is the first Monday in September, and now it's moved to mid-August. We don't even have snow days, okay? We don't. We have no explanation with snow days.
Well, we do have a lot of small vacations during the year. So there's the 6 weeks of summer, then there's 2 weeks in fall, and usually around October. Then there's 2 weeks around Christmas, and there's 3 weeks around Easter, and then there's 6 weeks in summer again. So that's usually the vacation time that kids have. It's the exact dates change from year to year because they try to keep it different from state to state to avoid a lot of traffic jams and to keep prices lower during season.
Right.
So the only time it doesn't really change is Christmas because you can't do a whole lot. You just have the Christmas days and Christmas and January 1st, that's sort of like a holiday season.
And then there's the whole thing of, you have to shift from doing something. And of course, people who go to work have to do this too, shift from doing your work to being home with the kids full time, which if they're not during the school day, okay. Yeah. So
all right,
summer,
I think we've gone over time.
yes, summer. It's requiring a whole new mental model, and
it is. Yes.
it just is. It just is what it is. We hope your summer is going really well, and you're able to attack your summer writing with apparently more force than I was able to in the last week. And if you can't read. I was really enjoying reading a lot this because I don't turn off my critical thinking when I'm reading, but we can do a whole episode on that too. I believe we'll have a special guest next week.
If all works out, yes.
If all works out. So thank you for joining us for this really relaxing, spontaneous summer session. My name is Diane Patterson.
And I'm Hannah Steenbach.
And thank you for joining us, and we hope to talk to you again next week. Bye. Where is the mouse? There it is.